Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What the Frick podcast. If you have the privilege of watching this on Spotify or YouTube, I hope you enjoy my lovely outfit today. I just didn't really feel like getting all glammed up for this today. It's been a long week and I just wanted to be comfy and share today's topic. So again, if you're watching, shout out. If you're listening, you do not have to look at me, and congrats for you. So today I want to talk about traveling and airports, airplanes, and just what's kind of become of traveling in the modern day. I am someone that travels quite frequently, whether it's going to see friends or for a job. I am pretty much in an airplane every 2 to 3 weeks or so, at least for part of the year, and I am currently living in that era. Today, I want to talk about the do's and don'ts when it comes to air travel and just kind of the etiquette behind being on an airplane, and just share some great stories I've had while traveling. So let's start by the don'ts, I would say. I think there's a lot of people out there that like to get to the airport with hours to spare. You know, they say if you're on an international flight, you should get there 2 hours before. I think that's the only time where I would actually agree with that, to get there that early, because you are going on an international flight, which means you probably paid a boatload of money, and if you miss that flight, you're screwed. So in that instance, yeah, get there early. However, I for one am someone that likes to travel kind of, I guess, more risky. I like getting to my gate with a maximum like 20 minutes to spare. Any longer than that and I get incredibly bored and impatient. I like being able to get there. If I want to buy a water, get a water, go pee really quick, and then I want to get on the plane. If I'm there for longer than that, I'm just like twiddling my thumbs, sitting on TikTok, wondering why I got there so early and wasting my time. If you don't have pre-check, in terms of like TSA pre-check, I don't know what you're doing. It literally costs about $85 to go, and they literally just like take your thumb or your finger, I forget which one, and they like stamp it. They like write down your information, and then within like a day you're told, yep, you're good to go, and you're good for 5 years. You pay $85, one fee, you're good for 5 years. You no longer have to take your shoes off, take your electronics out, or go through the x-ray machine that's like super invasive. And it has been such, I guess, a godsend for me, just in terms of getting through the airport quickly. I think for me it's more so I just don't like waiting in lines, so having that and not having to wait in like a large line of people, especially if it's like the early morning when it's very crowded at airports, has just been so nice. Being like, you know what, I can maybe leave my house a little bit later because I don't have to get there early and think about the lines. Now, if you're someone that's not traveling quite as frequently, like maybe you go every 6 months, a year or so, it's just not something you spend money on or something you do regularly, then yeah, you probably don't need pre-check or clear or global entry or any of that stuff. It's just going to be a waste of your money, and in that terms, it is more beneficial to just kind of get there. A life hack I have come to terms with is most airports have a Starbucks in them, and what you can actually do if you don't feel like paying for a $5 or $6 water, or getting water out of one of those little like water dispenser things that some airports have. I'm just weird about water, and I want to know that it's fresh and clean and like bottled. So I either will spend the money and actually buy a bottled water of some sort, or I'll wait to get on the plane and, well, one, never ask for water on an airplane because it's not clean. If you go on like any Reddit and you look up flight attendant secrets, they will tell you like, don't drink the water, it's just not good. So in that case, I usually order like a Sprite or a ginger ale because that's coming from a can. But back to the life hack, if there's a Starbucks and you go up to them and you ask them for a grande or a tall water, what they used to do before COVID is they would actually take my entire water bottle and they would fill it up for me, and I was like, this is amazing. But once COVID hit, they were kind of like, we can't do that, but we'll give you like a tall water, which is like the smallest size. But it was still super helpful because that's like enough water for me to, get through my hour and a half plane ride and then get somewhere where I can actually get free water, So that's a life hack. The only annoying thing is they kind of look at you a little annoyed, like, really? You're only here for water? Something I really want to stress, and I mean this wholeheartedly, is people are so unbelievably slow at airports. I don't know why. Whether you're walking to a gate or you're walking from a gate that you just got off of a plane from, people are just incredibly slow. And I've noticed that so many people will, like, as soon as they get off the plane, they'll just stop and they look around as if they've never been in an airport before and they have no idea where to go, as if there aren't like 100 people behind them also trying to like get out of that, tunnel thing that leads you into the airport. You're just stopping traffic and making it take that much longer. And it's not going to take, like, you shouldn't be that disoriented coming out of a plane. Like, keep walking. There are signs literally everywhere. You're either going to go this way or that way. Like, you got a 50-50 chance, and it's probably going to take you a maximum of 2 seconds to look up and say, oh, baggage claim, ground transportation, that way. And I want to harp on the fact that people are so slow. I've noticed moving walkways, those beautiful escalator things that are flat on the ground. Those are a privilege to walk on, and people that just stand on them, one, I don't know why you're standing. Like, do you not have places to be? Like, the whole fun reason to get on a moving walkway is to feel like you're Superman and to walk with a purpose and be like, wow, look at me. I'm like Usain Bolt up in here. So why are you standing? And if you do decide to stand for whatever messed up reason is your choice, I guess, do not stand in a way where you're like completely blocking the entire walkway. It's a pretty narrow path. If you're gonna do this, stand like to the side, like turned with your luggage in front or behind you, so that there's a very clear like walkway for people to move past you. I cannot stress this enough, and this is something they do in Europe. It's like a known fact that you either are going up and down the stairs, like a very direct movement, and people do not stop on escalators ever. People are constantly moving, and if you are someone that stops, it's like you're in like sin over there. Like, you cannot be doing that. So the Europeans know what they're doing, and I don't know why America's just, full of lazy people. I guess another I'm gonna just harp on this. I'm gonna go on a quick little rant here about slow people. But getting off an airplane, I don't understand some people. There are, again, a good maybe 100 people behind you or so if you're in the front of the plane. You should be like standing ready to go with like your backpack or your purse or whatever you're carrying like on you. If you have carry-on luggage, like, even if you're in like the window and you can't get to it as quickly, like the minute you have access to like get in, like you should be moving and just like grabbing it. I always will like go grab the handles. Sometimes I'll hold it over my head while I'm like walking down the plane just to like make it go faster. You should not be like taking your time being like, oh, let me just like kind of carry it down, like put it down, let me stick my backpack and my purse on top. Like, no, you are taking so long. Like, get off the plane, get into the airport, and then like settle yourself. There are like so many people behind you, and some of those people might have connecting flights or people waiting on them, or just the fact that you've been in a little tube in the sky for however long. People want to get off, and you just taking your sweet time is not okay. Also, I recognize the fact that it is no longer required to wear a mask while traveling, and that's your own personal choice. I for one like to still wear a mask because the thought of being around all those people in a little tube in the sky with like the circulated air is just, it does something to me and to my brain. I think if I was on maybe a 10-hour flight, I might take a break here and there with just like resting my ears. But for me personally, I prefer wearing a mask, and I only say this because if you are sitting next to someone that is wearing a mask and you're not, I think you should be maybe like slightly more aware of just what you're doing. If you're gonna cough or sneeze or do anything of that nature, like, be aware, do it into your shirt. take it into your elbow. Like, do not just like do it while this person sitting next to you, who is clearly being more aware of the fact that they do not want to get sick and do not want to be around this. I just think so many people are so unaware of their surroundings, and when you sit next to someone who is clearly still concerned, you should care in that respect. So 2 things I see people do all the time that's insanely gross is, 1, they will take their phone and they'll stick it in that little pouch that has like the safety brochure thing. You should not put it in there. Like, those things never get cleaned. People stick food and like random nonsense in there. You're gonna put your phone in there and that you like touch all day. No, if you don't have no place to put your phone, 1, you're weird. Like, you should have a pocket of some sort, or put it in your backpack or purse, or you know what? We're all people. Just hold it in your hand. Like, I don't know why people feel the need to stick it in there. You also run the risk of maybe forgetting it. So don't do that. So this could just be me. So keep that in mind. I am someone that's been germophobic since before the pandemic, and I've always done this. But I see so many people on planes start eating without washing their hands. And it grosses me out so much, because you think about the fact you're getting on the plane, you're probably touching the seat, you have to touch the seatbelt to put that on, you may have touched the tray table, there are people just moving all around you, there's no way your hands are clean anymore. And so when I see people who don't have some sort of like hand wipe or anesthetic or hand sanitizer, I feel like we should all be carrying hand sanitizer, especially, in this somewhat post-pandemic life. You're around so many people, and you're gonna like reach your hand into your pretzels and then like stick that in your mouth. You're just asking to get sick, in my opinion. So I, for one, always carry around some sort of hand sanitizer, and I'm actually at the point where I'll spray it once, let it dry, and then I'll literally spray it again because I still don't feel clean. But that's a personal problem of mine. All right, so story time. I have so many plane stories. I don't even know where to begin, but I think more recently I have been experiencing so many flight delays that I have become so desensitized to just things that happen at the airport that don't go smoothly, as in you get there, your flight takes off on time with no mechanical issues, weather issues of any sort. That hasn't happened to me in like 4 months. All right, so this was maybe 4 weeks ago. Yeah, like about a month ago. And I was on my way to Vegas just to visit family. I had a 6 p.m. flight, which I was very happy about. It wasn't like early in the morning or super late at night. I just got there right after work, and I was headed home to see my family. And I get there, and I noticed that the plane has not arrived yet, and that's like a big indicator to me, like, okay, the plane's not here yet. Usually planes, they're coming from all over the country, so usually the plane will come, obviously deboard, and then within like 10 minutes they're boarding the next flight. That wasn't happening, and I had gotten a notification on my phone about 2.5 hours before my flight saying, your flight's delayed. And of course I'm like, well, that sucks, but sometimes they say your flight could end up being on time, so we'll still get to the airport around the same time. But for those that don't know, you can actually go online and track your flight number and see where your plane's coming from. So for example, I was going from Phoenix to Las Vegas, but I could track and see that my flight was coming from Oakland, and then that flight had came from, let's say, San Francisco. So you can see all the paths, and like if your flight has not taken off from its destination to where you are, you're not going anywhere. So I'm always checking those flights just to see like if it's on time or not. But anyways, I get to the airport, and I had seen that my flight had yet to leave its destination, and it was coming from, I think, Oklahoma City, which is a good 2.5 hours from Phoenix. And so I'm like, wait, what? Like, this hasn't even left the station. How is this happening? So I go up to the flight attendants, or not the flight attendants, the desk agent people, whatever they're called. And I said, hi, what's going on? And she looked at me and said, hi, there's weather in Vegas. There's no flights right now taking off. Everything's delayed. And I was texting my mom, who lives in Vegas, and I said, is there weather right now? It's not showing on my weather app that there's weather in Vegas. And she says, no, like everything's fine. And then I had gone even an extra step to check other like airlines, like, American, Delta, stuff like that, flying into Vegas, all on time. And so I say, are you sure it's, weather related? Because I don't even see the plane here. And she turns around and she's like, oh no, it's here. It's clearly not here. Like, I don't know if she saw a ghost plane or something. So I look at her and I say, all right, well, is there any way you can change me to a different flight? And because this flight had already been delayed by 3 hours, there was another flight to Vegas, I think, an hour and a half from when I had gotten there. So past my original time, but I would have still gotten to Vegas earlier than my new delayed flight. And she said, yeah, I mean, just so you know, there's no flights right now going to Vegas. It's because of weather. And I said, okay, well, I still want to like get on this flight. Like, can you just switch me? And she said yes. So I get my ticket and there's an entire line of people behind me trying to do the same thing. And they're all kind of confused and saying, I don't understand like why it's so delayed. And I had seen this one couple and I said to them, I think they're lying because the plane's clearly not here. It's saying it has not left its destination to us, but she's telling me that there's weather and there's no weather in Vegas. And they were all so confused and they were just like, that's weird. We're gonna just try to get on that other flight. And I was like, yeah, good luck. So I call my mom and I'm like, so my flight's severely delayed. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm actually going to walk over to the other terminal and see if there's an American flight I can get on. So I walk over there. I see that there's a flight taking off in 45 minutes and it's on time. So I'm like, you know what? Luckily, I was flying Southwest. I don't think I mentioned that, but I was flying Southwest, and they allow you to cancel up until like 10 minutes before your flight and get like a full refund with like credit to fly later. So I was like, great, like I'll just cancel my, ticket going there and then I'll buy an American flight. It was around the same amount of money I had spent anyway. So I go up to the American gate people and I was like, hey, like, do you know if this flight will be on time? The people over at Southwest are telling me that there's weather in Vegas. I'm thinking of changing my flight over here, but I don't really see a point if it's also going to be delayed. And she said, I have not been told that there's weather in Vegas. We're planning on taking off on time. If something changes, it would happen pretty quickly. But as of right now, we are planning to take off in about, 40 minutes. So I said, great. So I walk over to the little, the customer service desk, which is like right down the hall. And I'm like, hey, can I just buy a flight real quick? And it wouldn't let me buy it online anymore because it was like past the threshold or whatever of when you could buy an online ticket. And she's like, yep, for sure, it'll be $215 one way. And I was like, online it says it's 98. And she's like, yeah, it's always more expensive when you buy it here at the airport, like, sorry. And I'm like, well, it won't let me buy it online anymore. Is there any way you can just do that price instead? And she was like, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. So I'm like, well, let me buy it online. I have to buy it here. I'm not spending an extra like $115 just to get to Vegas like a few hours early. So I walk back to the Southwest terminal where I'm going to take off, and I don't know, I think it was like two hours from then, and I was like, I'm just going to relax. So I sat down at a table, got my laptop out. I was doing some, work. I ordered a glass of wine because I was like, I deserve this. And I ended up seeing that couple come back, and they had told me that they were unable to get on my flight and they were stuck on the original flight, and that was not taking off until like 10 o'clock or something like that. And I was like, wow, I'm so sorry. And then I had realized that I was actually sitting in the wrong like terminal area. On my ticket, it said like you're at D7, and so I was sitting, right by that area. But then I had looked on those screen things and it had said, oh, you're actually like C11. And I'm like, great, I had to make my way all the way to the other side of the airport. Like, I don't know why they just kept like changing the gate for a flight that had still not taken off from its destination. And I guess this new flight I had been switched to also hadn't been there yet. So anyway, I finish my glass of wine, I get some work done, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling productive. I make my mile trek back across the airport. And I get there, they're finally, like, the plane for that new flight has finally arrived. People are deboarding, everyone's feeling good, because that flight had also been delayed, I think, like an hour and a half or so, even though it was, like, later. It was confusing. But pretty much every Southwest flight had been delayed to some extent. So they had finally finished deboarding the plane that I was going to get on. I was feeling good. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do this. And then they make an announcement and say, so sorry, everyone, but there is actually weather in Vegas, and we're going to have to sit tight for about 30 to 45 minutes and see what happens. And I'm just like, what? Like... And there actually was weather in Vegas this time. They weren't lying about it like they were like 4 hours ago. So I look online, there actually is like a giant rain thunderstorm going on, and I'm like, great, so the plane finally gets here, and now I actually can't get there because there's actual weather. So I sit at that gate for like 40 minutes, and then they're like, we're actually going to move you guys to a different gate. Keep in mind, I had been at like 6 different gates by now, because 1, just from changing my flight, 2, trying to get on that American flight, 3, going to my new flight gate, realizing it was not the right gate, and then going to that other flight. So about 4 different gates I had already been at. When I tell you that it was so funny seeing like 100 some people all just like get up and kind of like a school of fish just make their way across the airport. And it was not like the gate next door or anything. It was like a good like 8-minute walk, like I guess airport walk from where we were. So everyone's going, and they actually put us in like the more remodeled section of the airport, which I was kind of like, all right, this isn't that bad. So we finally get to that part of the airport, and there's like no one else in that section but our flight. There is a plane like sitting there and waiting, but again, there's still weather, so they won't let us go. I think I sat over in that area for, God, at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And at this point, it was like 10:30 at night. And I just kept calling my mom and saying, like, I just hope I make it there. Because, like, there's a whole thing with pilots and airplane crews where if they're working more than, I think it's 12 hours, I don't know, don't quote me on that, they cannot work anymore. And they will just cancel the flight because it's not safe. And so I'm like, well, it's getting to that time of the night where, like, planes aren't really flying anymore. Like, what if they cancel? And I've been sitting here for, like, 6 hours. And they had still been telling everyone, like, hey, this is going to take off. We just got to, like, wait it out. I had talked to a flight attendant who was like, I'm trying to get to Vegas, too. Like, we're ready to go. We just got to wait for the go-ahead. And then, finally, by some miracle, the person that, like, scans the tickets comes out. And he's like, hey guys, we're gonna start boarding in 5 minutes, like, line up, we'll try to get this done as quickly as we can. I get on the plane. I think it still took like a few minutes just to get everyone settled and together, and then they finally made that announcement where they're like, flight attendants prepare, or whatever. And at this point it is like 11:50 at night. Keep in mind, my original flight was at 6 p.m. and then that had been like severely delayed by like 4 hours. So I had switched it to an 8 o'clock or like 8:30 flight. And that one had been delayed until now, like 11:30 at night. But I didn't really care. I was like, I'm just trying to get home. Like, I know I can just go home, get home, and like go to sleep and I'll be fine. So like, I was just like, I am praying we take off and they don't make us sit on this plane for whatever reason. So Godspeed. The plane takes off and I make it to Vegas, and I landed, and I think it was like 12:50 at night. And again, just you know how sometimes when you land at an airport they make you wait a few minutes because there's like someone at your gate or whatever? Yeah, that's what was happening. But I was so confused because I'm like, it's this late, like, who is standing in our way? Like, why are we not moving? So we had landed in Vegas and we're sitting on the airplane for like 20 more minutes. And not a single person on this flight was complaining or making any noise. I think we were all just so tired that no one really cared. But I was like, can we just get off this plane already? Like, it's already like 1:15 in the morning. I still gotta like go get an Uber and get home. So I did eventually get off the plane, and thankfully, I was at the Vegas airport. If you have not been there, it's extremely lively. You would not know that it was 1:30 in the morning. The Uber section had like at least 100 people. So I was like, is it 7 p.m. or is it 1:30 in the morning? But regardless, I got in my Uber, I got home, and I got to see my family. But I was like, wow, I can't believe I just made it through that, because I have had instances where traveling and just if any minor inconvenience used to happen to me, whether it was a weather delay or we got to go fix the plane or let's just sit on the plane for an hour while they fix the bathroom or something, I would like burst into tears. And I'm going to tell that story in a second, because why wouldn't I? I'm almost kind of thankful that situation of that 6.5 hour delay happened to me, because it really desensitized me and showed me like, hey, you can get through this actually, and you still made it there alive without, crying or having a panic attack or freaking out. And it was funny because I'm going to reference Vampire Diaries a lot. It's one of my favorite comfort shows, but I had called my mom and said, I turned my humanity off about 4 hours ago. So sitting in that airport, I no longer really felt anything. I was almost like numb. Like they could have been like, we gotta wait another hour. And I would have been like, okay, chill, whatever. Like I was just at a point where I didn't care anymore. And so I always joke now that whenever I enter an airport, I immediately just turn my humanity off until I have landed in my destination and I am off the plane for me to be able to feel something again. Because literally, like, air travel is so inconsistent and anything could happen, whether it's weather or it's like the plane broke or just something happens and it's really out of your control. And I used to get so upset when things like that would happen. And I realized like there's just nothing I can do about it. So why should I care? So like a vampire, I'm going to just turn my humanity switch off and I will turn it back on when I'm there. Whew, all right. Well, let's get into the other story. So I had mentioned that I used to get really upset when, things like that occurred, and I shouldn't have, because I had no way of controlling, this stuff. But I want to explain what happened and how it kind of shaped me and how I've finally now gotten over it. All right, so I want to tell my other story now, and this happened all the way back in 2015. And this incident is what really set me off and made me become so like anxiety ridden every time I was flying. And it made me just, if my flight did not take off on time or there was any type of inconvenience, I would go into like a full-blown panic mode, all because of this one incident. So what had happened was I was actually traveling with my family internationally, which was an amazing trip. Everything went great. And we all kind of had different flights coming home because of scheduling. I forget the exact reason. But I was with my mom. So we had flown from, I think, London to Chicago. And our layover was in Chicago. And we were trying to get back to Phoenix, Arizona. But our layover was like 12 hours or something. So we were like, we're going to be tired. Like, let's just stay the night in the hotel across the street, get some sleep, and then we'll get up in the morning for our flight. So we do that, and everything's going well. We get on our flight. Again, everything is great. Takes off on time. There's no issues. We are 30 minutes outside of Phoenix. We've made the entire 3-hour airplane ride down to Phoenix, Arizona. And they come on the monitors or the sound system thing, whatever it's called. And they say to us, hey, so there's actually some weather in Phoenix right now. We cannot land there, so we're just gonna circle this area for a few minutes because we're only 30 minutes outside. The plane can handle it. And so for those that are aware of your Arizona cities, we were kind of circling Tucson, which is about a 2-hour drive from Phoenix. And my mom is also someone that gets kind of some anxiety on airplanes. She has totally different reasons than mine, but when they said that, she was kind of like, oh, I don't feel great about that. But I was like, we're fine. Like, we're going to get there. Like, we've come this far. It'll be fine. And then after like 30 minutes, we were still circling this like area of Tucson, and they had said, actually, we have to land the plane. Like, we realized there's a mechanical issue. The minute I heard mechanical issue, I was like, what are we still doing in the sky? Like, get us down. We are 30 minutes from Phoenix. Like, this should not be happening. So they land the plane, and, I'm thinking we're going to, like, get off the plane, like, get on a new plane. I don't know, do something. But no, they park the plane on the tarmac, which is just like the long strip that they take to like, lift off in the air. It was kind of like a side tarmac, so I guess kind of like a side parking garage for planes. I don't know. But this is where things escalated for me, because they did not let us off this plane. They made an announcement and they were like, we're going to have some workers come on the plane and just quickly fix the issue. And then, by then the weather should be gone from Phoenix and we'll be back in the air. So I was thinking, okay, we're at max maybe like an hour, and I was not feeling great, but I was like, this is fine. 2 hours go by and we're still sitting on this plane. They have not managed to fix it. Keep in mind, I was extremely jet lagged from coming from Europe. I remember I was starving, and I had told myself, like, okay, I'll land in Arizona and we'll like all go out to dinner. It'll be fine. At the time, I was also going through like a weird, I guess, personal life transition, because I had just graduated from high school and I had left all my friends behind, and I was just not in like the greatest state of mind either. My phone was pretty much dead. I did not have like a portable charger with me because I'm an idiot. I don't know. All I had was my mom, who had somehow actually managed to completely stay calm. I think she was okay because we weren't in the air anymore. She was just happy to like be on the ground, whereas I was now having a full-blown panic attack because I was stuck in this tiny little aircraft with 100-some people. I was exhausted, like I said, and I am someone that's very claustrophobic, and so I did not like the fact that I could not get out of that plane. Like, it's actually illegal, and you'll be charged like $250K or something like that if you try to open a plane door without permission. And so I was like, do I risk it? I mean, I can't go to jail. I was like 18 at the time, but I was full blown sobbing. I was walking up and down the aisles, like trying to ask the flight attendants for food, because I was just so hungry, and they ended up throwing like a giant bag of Chex Mix at me. I think they were just so annoyed and they didn't want to like deal with people, but they threw what would be like probably like a $15 bag of Chex Mix at my head, and I got it. I ate that. I met a very nice man who was like, do you want to call someone? I think he thought I was traveling alone. Little did he know I actually had my mother with me. I was just like losing it. And so I took this man's phone. I had tried to call someone that I was close with at the time, but they didn't answer. So that didn't work out. So I gave him his phone back, and I go and I sit back down, and the girl sitting next to us, there's 3 seats on planes. So it was like this girl and then my mom and me. And she had just been like sitting there watching me have this like full-blown panic attack. And my mom just kept saying like, you gotta calm down. We're fine. Like, we're on the ground. And I was like, I don't care. I need to get off this plane. I feel so trapped. And it was a feeling that I had never experienced before. And I don't know why I couldn't just relax. I think all those other components I had mentioned just really built up in my head. And there was nothing I wanted more than to just be able to go outside. And it's like in a car, if you don't feel well or you want to get out, like you just pull over and you open the door. You can't do that on a plane. And so it had been like 4 hours and we're still sitting on this plane. Eventually, I think I ran out of tears because I was dehydrated. And I had just been so overwhelmed and exhausted that I finally stopped crying. And then they made an announcement and they said, we're going to actually let you guys get off the plane. Like, we're gonna still work on fixing the plane while you're inside the airport. And I was like, hallelujah, like, I need to get off this plane. There's no way in hell I'm going back on the plane, even if they do fix it. I had said to my mom, can we just rent a car and drive to Phoenix. Like I said, it's only about a 2-hour drive. It's not worth it at this point. We could have been home like 5 hours ago if they had just let us off this plane. And so we get off the plane, and my mom was just like figuring some stuff out. And the girl that was sitting next to us, she was so sweet. But she had no way of like getting back home herself. So she said, I'm just gonna wait for them to fix the plane. And then about 20 minutes later, they said, hey, we can't fix the plane. We gotta cancel this flight. Sorry, everyone. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You couldn't have done this like literally 4.5 hours ago? You made us all sit here. You couldn't even. I was done. And so I go up to her and I'm like, hey, like, they're not fixing the plane. Like, they're canceling the flight. Like, do you want to come in the rental car with me and my mom? And I had talked to her on the plane, and we had discussed how she only lived about 5 minutes from where my parents lived. And she was like, no, that's okay. I'm going to call my dad and have him come get me. So she was going to have her dad drive all the way from Phoenix to Tucson to get her. And I was like, by the time he gets here, it's going to be like, I don't know, like 12, like 1 a.m. Like, you don't want to sit here by yourself for that long. Like, are you sure you don't want to come with us? And she was like, let me call my dad. So she called her dad, and he's cool with it. He ends up talking to my mom on the phone, and she's like, yep, we've been bonding the last 4 hours. Like, she's seen my daughter hysterical. Shout out me. And then they agreed. I think it was, had it been like a dad-son thing, I don't know if maybe he would have allowed his daughter to go. But it was like me and my mom. I'm like, we're fine. So we ended up getting a rental car and driving all the way back to Phoenix. And, you know, I'm not a fan of like long drives, but when I tell you how good it felt to just be in like a different mode of transportation and not have to worry about really anything. Like, I just felt so much freer being in the car, blasting music. Like, we stopped at a gas station and got like water and snacks. And I have no words really, but I felt so much better. And I told the girl, I'm like, I'm so sorry you had to see me like that. I don't know what came over me, but I just like could not handle that situation. So anyways, that situation really scarred me. And from then on out, I just had like a fear of flying, and it was never me being afraid of the plane crashing or any of those more rational fears people have. For me, I just hated the fact that when I was stuck in like a really small chair, I felt claustrophobic. You can't just open a plane door whenever you want. There's a ton of people and strangers around you. Like I mentioned earlier, like the air is all recycled. Like all of those thoughts just really freaked me out. I would say for about 2 years after that, every time I flew, I would just have so much anxiety leading up into the point of the plane taking off. And there were multiple instances where we'd be on the plane and they would make an announcement saying, hey, like we gotta wait 20 minutes for whatever this reason, or hey, someone's gonna come up and just like fix the AC real quick. And I remember there was a time where I was flying alone and I straight up started to tear up in my seat. I had called my best friend who I had just visited, and I said, the flight's having issues, like I'm panicking. And she's like, you're fine, calm down. And a flight attendant walks by and sees that I'm like struggling and teary-eyed, and she's like, oh sweetie, are you okay? Like I was literally being talked to like I was like an 8-year-old, and I was probably like 20 at the time. And I was just like, yeah, I don't like, flying, and when things like this happen, I just get kind of stressed. And she's like, oh, it's okay, we're gonna be fine, like I'll come check on you again in like 20 minutes. And it sounds silly and it almost sounds embarrassing, but these were real feelings of anxiety and stress that I had for about 2 years, where I did not want to fly. Like I knew I had to fly, and I love traveling and going to other places so much that it's just a part of who I am. But when I tell you that I like was basically holding my breath until the plane was doing, like speeding up really fast to take off, because then I knew, I'm like, oh, we're good. We're in the air, and then we're going to land. It's going to be fine. And even then, like when the plane landed, I would not feel great until I heard like the unfasten seatbelt sign come on, which means that like the plane's landed, you can get up and get off the plane. It was awful, and I'm not even sure how I got over it. I think just because I do travel quite often, and again, I become very desensitized to these situations, and it's been what, like, oh my god, like 8 years since that occurred, and I can confidently sit here and say that I am so desensitized to any sort of issue or delay that it really doesn't bother me anymore. I think if a similar situation that I had been in 2015 happened to me today, where I was stuck on a plane again for 4 hours, I think I would definitely struggle, but I don't think I would go into quite as big of a emotional frenzy as I did that day. I really have come quite far, and just last weekend I was traveling from Vegas to Phoenix, and for those of you that keep up with TikTok or the news, there was a false shooting in the Vegas airport, and by false I mean people thought they heard a gunshot, but really it was just some guy who I guess somehow made a really loud noise, but they ended up like evacuating the entire airport, and I wasn't there for this, thank God, but it had, messed up the flights that day, causing everything to be like severely delayed, and I was flying back home to Phoenix, and all the people around me were so annoyed because the flight had been delayed by like 3 hours, and I was just like sitting there on my computer like doing work, and I was like, it's gonna be fine, like this is nothing, like I've been through worse. And they were like, wow, you're so positive, like. And I was like, honestly, like there's nothing we can do, and why freak out about it? Like I may as well just sit here and enjoy the fact that I'm not stuck sitting on an airplane. Like I would much rather be stuck sitting in the terminal where I can get up, I can walk around, I can grab food or go to the bathroom, rather than be stuck on an airplane while they tell us we have to wait. Yeah, I met a lot of people that day who were telling me how annoyed they were, and I was like, yep, it sucks, but nothing we can do. And again, I only had this positive attitude because, like I said, I turn off my humanity when I enter an airport, because there's just anything can happen, and I don't want to ever allow myself to get as emotional as I was that day in 2015 and those 2 years after. So I have really come up with ways to cope, whether it's calling my mom, calling a friend, like scrolling on TikTok. I always have shows downloaded onto my iPad to watch. I have become so busy now that I usually have some sort of work I can do on my computer. So I find ways to keep busy, because the minute I'm not, I am afraid that I will revert back to that anxiety-ridden person who cries because the flight's delayed for a small mechanical issue. I don't want to be that person again. And I know that with all the things I want to do in life in terms of traveling to see my friends and, going abroad and doing stuff like that, I have to just get over it. And I'm lucky that I now am so, like, I keep saying the word desensitized, because I really am, and I'm grateful for it. I feel good about where I'm at, and I know I'm going to keep traveling a lot over these next few months, and I'm sure I will have more instances of stories where my flight's heavily delayed or something crazy happens, and I try to almost see it as like a reality TV show. Like I'm going to look forward to the drama of the airport, especially because I see so many people who go and yell at these like gate agents or flight attendants, and they're like, well, I was supposed to be at my destination like 4 hours ago, I had somewhere to be. And they're just like, sorry ma'am, nothing. Like they literally can't do anything, and watching people get mad at them, like I'm mad too, but it's actually legitimately not their fault, except for that one lady who lied and told me it was weather related. I was like, nope, you're wrong actually. But I think when it comes to traveling, we all just need to be, I think, self-aware. That's the biggest thing I've taken away. Be aware of yourself and be aware of other people. Don't walk slow. Don't be slow. Like, just be, like, have common sense. I feel like so many people, their common sense just goes out the door when they get on an airplane or to an airport. And it's like, that's the one place you should actually be like the most aware, if anything. But whatever. I'm glad I got that story out. It was something I had been kind of putting off for a while, but I was like, do I really want to revisit that terrible moment where I was like sobbing for 4 hours? Yeah, I think I do. So that's why I wanted to share that with you guys today. I will be traveling again this next upcoming weekend. I am making tally marks in my phone to see when I have a flight next that does not get delayed to some extent. So pray for me on that, and hopefully I don't have another instance where I am stuck in an airport for 6 hours. I feel like this episode was just one big rant about all the things I hate about airports and flying, and also like a somewhat of a therapy session of me divulging one of the worst days of my life while I sobbed in an airplane for 4 hours. So you guys are welcome for me saying that story, and hopefully I never get to that point again. I don't know what I will do if I do, but we're gonna pray that that does not happen to me. Again, thank you all for listening, and I am hoping to bring on some more guests sometime soon. And as always, if you do not already follow us on TikTok and Instagram at What the Frick Podcast. And again, if you are just listening to this, a lot of these episodes are filmed as well if you'd rather watch them on YouTube or Spotify if that is your preferred platform. So thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go and probably book another flight after just reliving that. So I will see you guys next week.